When playing in VR, one of the most important things in communication is the face, one of the biggest features being the eyes. Most models will have round eyes. Some will be animated with tracking, if the person who uploaded it wasn't super lazy, while others will have more love put into them and have some nice random movement, or even real eye tracking if you've got one of those fancy headsets. But how do you make your eyes track? Or even better yet, how do you make stylized eyes track? Maybe your character doesn't have perfectly round eyes like some popular cartoons. Maybe your character is more like Sonic, or maybe you have more oval-shaped eyes, or something entirely unique. Here is one very complicated way to achieve proper eye movement or tracking for vrchat.
Some of the things you're going to need to start with for this project will be your vrchat avatar SDK3 file, which you can find on the vrchat homepage under download. Next, you will need the appropriate version of Unity to open this SDK and work properly. Any other version of Unity will yell at you. Do not use any other version of Unity. As of this recording, the file will work with 2019.4.31F1. Next, you'll need a program to model with or open your models with. I recommend Blender. Any version will work. Most of them have all the same features across all versions, so you'll be just fine. Next, and finally, we have the Poiyomi Toon Shader. You can get this from the download link here, and I'll put everything I've listed here in the description below. So your first step will be to make your model. If you already have one but are trying to animate it, open it up in Blender. The eyes will need to be duplicated for this trick to work. If you have a material similar to mine, this very metallic type of material or shiny material, Poiyomi Shader might not allow this material to work with the decals that we're going to make. So your use case may vary, but your best bet will be to duplicate your eye mesh, and I'll show you the rest from there. Next, you're going to apply a material to each eye duplicate, which we will now refer to as pupil meshes, one for the left eye and one for the right eye. This will be important for when you export to Unity, and you will see why later. So we will go into wireframe mode, select one eye, Shift D, and then we'll drop it in place so it stays right there, and we'll do the same thing with the other one. L, Shift D, and drop it in place. So now we have two sets of eye meshes. Let's separate these out, and we'll select one of those, hit C and deselect these set of vertices here, so that we've got something that looks like this, and then we'll delete the back vertices. And then we'll do the same thing over here, and then delete those vertices. Okay, now we're going to select that, and I want to make sure that my active, we'll do median point for my transform pivot point. So when I scale it, it'll be just a little bit bigger. And then apparently the other side did it as well, which I did not want. So let's make sure that that is turned off. Back into wireframe, we'll scale that up a little bit, just so it's above and outside of the normal eye. There it goes. And then we'll do the same thing here. So now you should have two eye meshes, one of them overlapping the original. Perfect. So for our next step, we are going to apply a material to our eye and pupil meshes. So we go into our eyeball here, we select our original eye, the one that has the full mesh, and we make sure that we select our eye material and we hit assign. And we do this to the other side as well with the full eye mesh, and we assign it to eye. Now we select the outside mesh for our pupil, and we assign a secondary material to it, and this one's going to be pupil.r because it's the right side of the head. So that one I'll assign to pupil R and assign. Deselect that. Select this outer one for the pupil, and this will be pupil L for left pupil, and assign that. So now there are a total of 3 different materials. 1 material for the base of the eye, and 2 materials, 1 for each pupil. Now, for the final step in Blender, you will need to make sure that the eyes and pupils themselves are not rigged by the bones, but instead just attached to the base mesh of the model. You can do this by joining the eyes and pupils to the main model. Then double check your vertex groups here on the right hand side. Your vertex groups here, and select the eye group. Edit. So you want to select eye, and we'll go into this one. So we want to make sure that our pupil is not assigned to any of these left eye or right eye. So we'll select that and nothing gets selected. We'll do the same thing for eye.l. And now notice that because these vertex groups have nothing selected to them, that's good. That means that none of the bones are going to morph or modify any of these meshes. But that's because I haven't joined them yet. So let's do that real quick. So we'll go into object mode, and then I'll shift select the mesh, and I'll just do Control J to join it. So now the eyes that were a separate object are now joined into the one mesh. Now if I go to wireframe, now the entirety of my mesh is now set up as one. Now if I unselect my eyes and then I go back down here to my vertex groups, check my eye, nothing is selected. Good. However, we do want to make sure of one thing. After we've got our mesh linked, we want to make sure we have the vertex groups, and then vertex group highlighted to the right. Yes, we want to assign these to the head. So if I go down here and scroll up to my head vertex group, head, and select, you'll see that everything on here is attached. If your eyes do not get selected, as well as the pupils, if these do not get selected while attached to, well, while you have your head selected, you want to make sure that you highlight just your eyes like this. So you want to deselect everything, hit L to select linked, all the connected mesh from what you're mousing over, and make sure just your eyes are selected. And then you hit assign. What this does is this applies a weight value of 1 by default, which is the strongest weight possible, to the vertex group you have selected. This is important because if you did this while the rest of the head was selected like this and then hit assign, the entirety of your head will have a weight paint of 1. So it'll be completely red on your weight paint for the head bone. And that may not be what you want for proper deformation of your animations for the rig. So just make sure that when you're assigning your eyeballs to the head mesh for the vertex group, just select the eyes and hit assign, and you'll be good to go. Doing this ensures that while in pose mode, if I select my bones here, go into pose mode, that your eyes will not go falling out of the eye socket when you rotate your head. And next up, we want to prepare our pupils for this next step. So our pupil mesh has only just been duplicated and chopped, and you can see that this material I have that has my pupil texture does not quite fit anywhere in the eye mesh itself where it's supposed to. So let's do something about that. We want to do something called UV unwrapping, but first we have to prepare this mesh. So we'll select our pupil mesh, go into wireframe, and you'll notice the edge here is what we want to select, this back edge that goes around this ring formation. So let's hit our C for select tool and hold down the middle scroll wheel to deselect everything we don't want so that only the outside edge is selected. And then we'll hit Control E and we'll do Mark Seam. And now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other pupil mesh. So we're going to do that real fast. And you'll notice that sometimes, if depending on your mesh, you might get this weird triangle that sits in the way because of how geometry works. We can go, instead of vertex mode, hit edge select and then shift click, twice to deselect the edge you don't want, and then Control E and Mark Seam, and that will keep that edge line nice and red, as you can see. Now we can go back to our vertex mode. Let's select our pupils, and then we're going to hit U and unwrap. Now this next bit's going to be a little bit confusing for those of you who aren't familiar with unwrapping, but bear with me. So I'm going to do a vertical split on the window here, just to get double views, and I'm going to open my UV editor. I'm going to show my eye texture, and you're going to see these two meshes kind of stuck in highlight over top of my eye material here. So this represents one of the pupils, and I want it to rotate. Let's get this in material preview so I can see what's happening. We want it to generally fit the material in somewhat of a decent way. Now you're going to see the pupil is quite large, but if I move my mesh up and down, you'll notice that the pupil moves up and down. If I move up, it moves up, which is not what I want. We want this to be reversed. So I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees by hitting R and then typing 180, hit enter. So now if I move the mesh up, the pupil will move down, which is exactly what we see happening on the left-hand side and the right. That is how we want it. Now, if I move this to the right, I want it to move to that corner, move this to the left, move it to that corner. Now, generally, we want to make sure that the pupil is following the mesh in a proper direction. So if I'm rotating, let's say, this bit here, this is supposedly the back end of the eye here, because you'll see that my cursor has selected this since I selected these two vertices. So if I move this over, that should technically actually be the back of the eye on this side of the mesh, and that is the case. It moves to the back of the eye. So we have a proper unwrapped mesh. So future me coming back in during mid-edit, and for this point we actually want it to be more like this version, where if I grab the UVs, we want the left-hand side to be the front of the eye and the right-hand side to be the back of the eye. We do, however, want it to go from up and down like so, and the same being the case for the other one. We want the left or the right-hand side of the UV island to be the back of the eye and the right-hand side of the UV island to be the front of the eye. And we want the top to go up and the bottom to go down. So as long as it's like this, your animations will work appropriately. This is why the animations later in this video will look wonky during the build-in test. It's because I did not actually have my UV maps appropriately flipped the proper way like I do have in my final version. This will happen if you don't tweak enough. So when your animations fail, this is why. For this next step, we are going to export. So you want to make sure that both your mesh and your rig are both selected. Go to File, go to Export, we're going to hit FBX. We're going to do Selected Objects, which is very important. Because if you don't have this selected, nothing will export. You're going to get a file that is like 1 kilobyte big. Armature, you want to make sure this is deselected. Add leaf bones is fine, it doesn't really make any difference. You can leave scale at 1, all local, negative Z forward, Y up. All that's totally fine. We're going to hit export, name it something. Mine's just going to be Polygon Dragonstone for Unity tutorial. That's okay. I know how to differentiate that from the rest of my files. And next, we're going to go into Unity. Now we've got our Unity open. You're going to want to make sure that you drag both your poiyomi shaders package that you downloaded and your vrchat SDK into the assets folder and just import all, and you'll be good to go from that point on and follow the rest of these steps. So once we've got those installed, let's start popping our FBX files in here. So I have a folder I created called avatars, and I'm going to go to tutorial, and then I'm going to go find my file that I just created, drag your FBX file directly in here, and it's going to do its thing, and you'll see a mesh that you have selected show up with all of these. At first, this might not be your first window that pops up, but we're going to do extract materials, and we'll just select the tutorial avatar folder that we're already in. Just hit select folder, and it's going to make a duplicate of all of the material slots that we've made from the model. So I should still have one for the eye, one for the left pupil, and one for the right pupil. And we're going to modify pupil L and pupil R later. But on our FBX file, we want to make sure that the rig is set up for vrchat. We're going to go humanoid, apply, let Unity do its thing. Then we're going to hit configure. At this point, we want to make sure that all of our bones are matched up to the appropriate spot. Hip to hip, spine to spine, so on and so forth. Legs are there, just as we need it to be. We're going to go to the head, and we're going to remove the jaw, because reasons. Neck 1, head, left eye is for some reason set to tongue by default, which is not correct. So we're going to make sure that this is set to the eye bone. We're going to do eye.L for the left eye. Go here, we're going to do eye.R for the right eye. Now you will have to double check this because default settings will not always properly guess everything depending on who made your model and rigged it. If you yourself did it, like I made my own model rig and it still didn't get it right. So double check your rig's bones to make sure they go into the right space. And then of course hit apply. You're going to click on this muscles and settings bit, and we're going to turn the upper leg twist and lower leg twist off, just to make things a little bit nicer on the mesh. And then after we hit apply, we can hit done. Now we have our model set up for everything else that we're going to do. And we're just going to drag it right into the scene. And now we have our model in the middle of everything. And you'll see some weirdness going on with the pupils that we've assigned. So this is where we're going to change our material for the pupil from standard to poiyomi. And we're going to do the poiyomi 8.0 or whatever the newest version is. We're going to set that to poiyomi tune. And we're going to get a whole bunch of options. Now inside these options, they're going to look a little bit weird. They're probably going to be a bit, off-putting, but we're not going to deal with a whole lot of them. For what we got here, we're going to go into colors and normals after we set this to transparent. So at this top rendering preset, set the transparent, go into the color and normals tab, and then down inside here, we're going to see one called decals. This is what we're going to use. So decal 0 is the one we're going to open. We're going to turn it on. And we're going to take the image file of our pupil, drop that in. We're going to turn this into alpha is transparency, and apply, which is good. So now we're going to go back to our pupil at L. We've got our decal. We're going to drop that into the decal zeros decal texture spot. And then this up here, the color in alpha, we're going to turn that to none. We want that nice and empty, so that only one decal is on there. So it'll look like this at first. We're going to go up here to the color in alpha at the top of our decal, and we're going to turn the alpha all the way down so that alpha is 0. And then down here inside of decal, emission strength, we're going to turn it up to something close to like 1, just 1. Close to that should be fine. We want blending to be set to replace, and you're going to see two very, very important value fields here in the decal list. We're going to use position and rotation, maybe rotation. It depends on your use case. But we're going to right click on position and hit animated when locked. And we're going to do rotation, animated when locked. So describing everything about what locking and unlocking your poiyomi shader is beyond the scope of this, but ultimately we want this setting so that our animations work at the end of all this setup. And once you do that, this is completely done. We just do the same thing for the other one, for our pupil.r. We will go to poiyomi, 8.0, tune. We'll set it to transparent, turn the alpha down to 0, set the texture to none, open up the decals, turn decal 0 on, drag in the pupil image, put the emission up to, I think our last one was 0.8, and then rotation animated, position animated. And now we don't need to touch this until we start making our animations. Now, before we get too in-depth on doing all these changes, let's turn our avatar into a prefab. This is a Unity only thing, so we're just going to drag this down. We'll call it original prefab. And now, any edits we make, we should be able to do right in here. We're going to set up a few important things on the eyes. Starting off with the head. We want in our hierarchy here, we want to find our head bone, select it, and we're going to add a few components that come with the vrchat SDK3. We're going to put receiver, VRC contact receiver, and we're going to see this big ball show up. We're going to make this thing super, super tiny, like 0003. And then we're going to play around with the positions until we figure out exactly where we want to do, like 0.01, 0.001, 0.0015. All right, that's somewhere. And we are doing this for one of the two eyes, so we have to figure out where exactly do we want this. Do we want this on the right eye or the left eye? I generally like to tend to start with the left, so I'm going to start with the left eye. So this is going to go, oops, do 0003, negative. About 003, 0035, 001. Okay. And then Z will be 0.005, about 0005, 0003, about 001, 5, 3. Well, you'll get this to the point where you want it. So just tweak this until you feel happy with the placement. We're going to put this at the back of the eye. So we want this blue ball to fit in the back corner of the eye. we've got that set up. We'll do this a couple more times for each placement of the look direction. We're going to do one for look left, look right, look up, and look down. All right, so now you should have 4 receivers set up. First off, we're going to set the receiver type of each of them inside the contact receiver script. We're going to set them down to proximity. On the collision tags, we're going to set these to custom. We're going to put this as LE for left eye. And this parameter down here, we're going to tell it what direction this is going to be. So first, let's move this to see exactly which one we're talking with, and then Control Z to undo. So this is the back eye that we're working on. This one is going to be look left. So when you're looking all the way to the left, this pupil should look this way, all the way towards the back of the eye. So this LE parameter will be underscore L for left. Now for the next one, we can minimize that one. We're done with that one. Collision tag, add, custom, LE for left eye. And the parameter, we're going to see which position this one is. This one is all the way at the front of the eye. So this is when we're going to look to the right with this pupil. So this parameter will be underscore R for look right. And now we're done with this one. The next one, as you can see the pattern, we're going to figure out which one it is. This one's the up. So we're going to add a tag for left eye, LE. We're going to set the parameters receiver type to proximity. And then we're going to do LE underscore U for up. Let me double check and make sure this one is also set to proximity. Yep. Now we do this one, since it's the last one, we already know this one's down. So we're going to do LE for left eye for the tag. We're going to set this proximity. LE underscore D for down. And now our receivers are completely set up for the left eye. We're going to repeat this same process for the right eye next. Now, an easy way to make the right eye is to simply select one of these, and then we'll hit copy component, go at the bottom, and paste component as new. And now this one should say LEL. We'll do this for the second one as well. Copy component, paste as new. Take the third one, copy component, paste as new, and get the fourth one, copy component, paste as new. Then we're going to take these final 4, and we're going to take the negative 001, turn it into a positive. And then instead of LE and LE underscore L, we're going to double check this. So this one is instead going to be to the right. So now this pupil, when we look to the right, should look to the back of this one. So we're going to put this tag as RE for right eye, and we're going to put RE underscore R. And now we go down to this next one, take the negative, turn it into a positive, and that one's going to be right eye left. RE for right eye under the tag. Still a proximity. I'm going to do right eye underscore R for right. Or no, we already got that one. We want left. This one's for looking left. My bad. RE underscore L. Next one, take the negative out. This one's looking up. We can keep that set the same, so RE, and just change the L into an R. Final one we know is the down. Take off the negative. E. R. Now we have all 8 receivers attached to the head bone on our hierarchy. And this will be put into play when we add a sender on our eye. Now for this next bit to work, we have to work with the eye bones. And if you imported a pre-made rig, you may or may not have 2 different eye bones. These I.L_end, R._end, do not work. These are the literal endpoints of a bone. These do not transform your mesh. So if you have an I.L and an I.R, you will want to duplicate these. So we're going to control click to select both of those and then control D to duplicate both of them. Now I'm going to take the duplicate I.L and make it a child of the original left eye. Take the duplicate right eye and make it a child of the right eye. If it is indented underneath your eye in this hierarchy, then you are properly set up as a child of this object. And there is a good reason for this. What we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of hacky magic. We're going to add a component to the duplicated eyes. We want to put our sender, VRC contact sender, on the duplicate eye bone. So this is going to be 0.00202. Yeah, there we go. Nice and small, 3 zeros. And we'll do the same thing for the right eye duplicate. We're going to add the sender, 0.0002. Okay, now for the tags here, since this is a sender, we want this right eye to be under custom tag of RE. So it matches the receivers of RE on that right hand side. We're going to make sure that this one is LE as well for the left side. Okay, so let's go into the armature. Let's make sure that our sender is towards the end of the bone, so it actually, yeah, so it needs to rotate towards the end of the bone. So we got to move this a little bit forward. So 0.00. No, we don't need to move the X. We need to move the Y. No, the Z. 0.0002. Maybe. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that'll work good. So we do the same thing with this one. 0.0002. Now we're done with the senders. We don't have to bother doing anything with the senders. But we do have one more constraint we want to put on each of these duplicated bones. So we're going to add a rotation constraint. And what we're going to do here is we're going to hit this plus sign on the sources, hit this circle itself, and we're going to turn the left eye duplicate to follow the rotation of the original left eye. Then we hit activate button here, this top one, not the is active checkbox. We hit the activate button. And we do the same thing for the I.R rotation constraint, the duplicate. Hit the plus sign, hit the self, type in I.R. We want it to be the original, not the duplicate. Then hit activate. And now we are done with this. What this does is that vrchat is going to try to animate the original I.L and I.R bones. But our receiver exists on the duplicate eye bones that we've created. And when the I.L and I.R rotate, so too will this receiver rotate along with it. But because of how things are set up right now, it's not going to show the rotation. We'll see how this all works out in just a minute. So now that we've got our receivers and all the senders set up, we are now going to move on to the animation step. Now with the next step being animations, let's create a folder called animations and we'll go into it. We're going to go into this animation tab. If you don't have it, we're going to go to window, go down to animation and hit the animation tab. It'll pop up the window somewhere. You can dock it anywhere you want on your Unity screen. But we're going to see that this pops up. We want to select it. We want to select our avatar that we are creating an animation for. And you're going to see this create button show up. We want to create a new animation. I'm going to do left underscore eye, and we're gonna go left. And that'll be the name for our first animation. And that's gonna be this pupil here. Okay, so select the mesh of the avatar from your hierarchy, not the object root. So we're gonna go down and select the actual mesh object, and then underneath the skin mesh render, we're gonna see our shaders for all of our materials. We're gonna make sure we're on pupil.l, and then we're gonna modify this one. So we hit the record button, position, and now it records the keyframe, and we only need one frame. So once we have it set there, we're good. Set this back down to like whatever it was at before, like 0.5 for our root animation bit here. So next, we're gonna do our look right. So we're gonna do left underscore I right. Then we're gonna hit the record button again, and then we're gonna move it all the way to the right. And then we're gonna hit the record button, and then we're gonna go to the create new clip. We do left underscore I underscore up. And then we're gonna hit the record, and then we're gonna move it up. We also want to make sure that this is 0.5. Right, so then we want to move this all the way up to where we want it. And then do the last one for left eye down. Do that bit. 0.5, get this back centered, and then just move it down. And then hit record again, so it unsets our timeline. So we have one keyframe for 4 different animations, and then we're going to do the same thing with the right eye. So you should then have 8 animations in total. I'm going to go ahead and make those now. Now for the next step with the animation setup, we need to go into the animator. If you haven't created one already, or the animations haven't created one by itself, we need a controller. And we have to use the controller inside the animator. So with the controller selected, we have our base layer here. We want none of these here. So we're going to select them and delete them, because these will get in the way. What we want to do is go into our parameters, and we're going to add a float. We're going to name this RE underscore up. Remember how we did this for our receivers? We're going to make all 8 receiver parameters that we made earlier. 4 for the right eye, 4 for the left eye. And do RE underscore down. We want them to be spelled exactly the same. So if you've been following along with the naming convention of this video so far, you're good to go. Do RE underscore left. And RE underscore R for right. And then we're going to do the same thing for the left eye's parameters that we made. LE underscore up. LE underscore down. LE underscore right. And LE underscore left. Now at this point, we don't have to touch these at all. They're good to go. Move on to our layers. Now with the base layer, we want this to remain empty. With any animations you've created, we don't want any of these blocks here other than these 3 you see right now. These are the defaults. These have to exist. We just don't want any custom animations to exist in this grid. We instead want to create a layer for the left eye. I'm going to call this left eye. And a layer for the right eye. And what we're going to do for these left and right eyes is we're going to set up a blend tree. So before we go into these, we want to make sure that the layer weight is set from 0 to 1. You'll notice the bar here fills all the way up. So we do that for both the right and left eye. This will make the animations actually appear and play. So inside of our left eye, where we'll start, we'll go from entry, we're going to right click, create state from new blend tree. This blend tree, we're going to double click into it. And right now it defaulted to the right eye parameter, but we don't want that. So up here on the blend type, when we select our blend tree node, blend type starts at 1D or 1 dimension. We want to go down to direct. This will give us more fine-tuned control over how we animate our blend tree. So with this, you'll get a motion list and it's automatically empty. We're going to add 4 motion fields. 1 for each of the animations for the left eye. We're going to go over to our assets folder and our animations. I'm going to go left eye down, drag that in, left eye left, drag that in, left eye right, drag that in, and left eye up, drag that one in. So what we're going to do here under the parameters, remember we made all those on this side here? We're going to match each of these directions with the parameter version of itself. So left eye down should be LU or LE underscore D, left eye down. And we're going to do the same thing for left eye left, LEL, left eye right, LER, left eye up, LEU. And we don't have to touch these values, that's totally fine. We are now done with the blend tree. We're going to do the same thing for the right eye. Right click, create state, new blend tree, double click into it, click on the blend tree node itself, set it to direct, add 4 motion fields, drag in your right eye animations 1 by 1, and now match up your right eye parameters, RED for right eye down, right E left, right E right, right eye up. So now all 4 of these are completely set. For this next step, we're going to fine tune our animations a little bit. So on culling mode, we're going to do always animate. We're going to make sure that our avatar as a whole has one very specific thing that all vrchat avatars need. We're going to type in vrc, and we're going to do avatar descriptor. And if you have lip sync stuff made already and you've done like bizemes or bizemes or vicines or however the heck you pronounce it, if you've made your blend shapes or your facial animations, it'll automatically detect those and import those in from your FBX file just fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to play with our eye look parameter here. Where it says enable, we're going to click that. Now, for however you want your personality of your character to have through their eyes, you can have it slide up to excited or calm, which is less eye movement. Excited has more eye movement. And then shy would probably make you look away from people a lot more often, or confident will have you looking directly at them a lot more often. So you can put these anywhere you like. Now for the transforms on this one below it for the eyes, we want to use the left eye bone. So we're going to do I.L. If we want the original eye bones for this to work, and we're going to do the same thing for the right eye. We want I.R. And at this point, we now have the option of setting our rotation states for the eyeballs themselves. So even if your animations seem a bit lackluster and they're not quite all the way there, like they kind of look forward and they almost kind of look left and right, but they don't have a lot of motion to them, it's because this rotation state is not quite set up yet to allow the eyes to rotate at certain degrees. So what this does is it sets your constraints to rotate along however you have them set. So I want to click open this. If we click on the link here, it'll open the L and the R for left and right. We'll do this for all of them. And of course, if this happens, you can just save Unity, because it will do this a lot. Save Unity, close it, and then reopen it. This tends to be a bug with doing all these edits as a prefab, but it can get kind of annoying. I'm sure this is a bug they can work out soon enough, but for now, this is our current fix. Okay, so now we're in our tutorial dragon. We have our eye bones set up, and now we're going to do the preview here, or it'll just keep doing this. Oh well. So what's going to happen is we're going to rotate for looking straight, since these are unlocked and opened. I want the left eye, and I want it to animate. Why is it not animating? Okay, so let's do the modifying out here in the scene instead of inside of the prefab. Let's see if we can't rotate these. Okay, now when we check our rotations, we rotate. Notice the receiver moves. And that's exactly what we want. So if we're looking forward, we want it to sit here, on the left eye, on the right eye. We also want it to move somewhere close to there, and that should be just fine. And then return, and then we'll do the same thing with looking up. We'll set these so that the senders are sitting inside of or really close to our receivers on that side. We'll do right. We'll just look straight up. And then I want it to be somewhere there. And the same thing with the left-hand side. So that'll be looking up. And now looking down, we'll do the same thing. We'll just make it go down. Do the same thing for the right. Return, and hit preview on the next one for looking left. Now when looking left, we'll have that go all the way over there. Make sure it's pointed outwards a bit. Right hand side, make sure it's looking forward a little bit. In. Then hit return and preview on looking right. So on the right hand side, this one will be the one that goes all the way around. Mixing that corner. That looks about right. And then this left one will look a little bit more down. Right, and that'll work great. So now that sets our proper eye-shaped bounds for the rotation of the eyes. If for whatever reason your eyes are a bit more, I don't know, extreme than this shape and they're much larger, you can set them to be relatively close to the front of the eye on a single plane, have it flattened out, and just have it like right, all four of them right here, so that the natural eye movement is just a little bit, and the animations are still be all the way around the eyes. You can finagle these as much as you want, but this is how you would do the setup for making the eyes rotate in the specific way that you want them to move, as you saw in the intro part. And make sure that your controller has the controller that you created for these animations. So this one would be the tutorial controller. Make sure that it is the tutorial controller. And then since we made the modifications in the scene, we want to hit this override here and then hit apply all so that we save all of our changes to our avatar prefab right here, which is still doing its weird thing. I don't know why. Save our scene. Do save. And now, yes. To make all of this work, we need to go down to our playable layers, customize this. We want to set our effects to be from there. We're going to make this become our animator controller. Oh, we also do have to make sure of one very important thing. Every one of these needs to have their loop time turned off. There we go. Now you can see that the pupil is rotating with the bones. Now, of course, this being as weird as it is not going to follow my rotation like I want it to, but this is properly set up now, so yours should theoretically also be just like this. It goes up, goes down, forward and backwards. Now, if for whatever reason, after you've gotten all your animations set up properly and they're still backwards, you will need to go back into your Blender file and go into your object mode and play with these vertices until, for whatever reason, these aren't doing what you wanted to. You can invert them. So let's say SX -1, so that'll flip it. So now, if I move this, it's going to move in all the wrong ways. But if this was the case that you needed it to flip in a very specific way, and hit save, select everything, export, FBX, go through all the same checklists, make sure that the armature is all set the same, selected objects, export the FBX, find your file once again, go back into your Unity, go into your project folder, go to your avatar where the FBX file lives. Do not do reimport, because it's not going to find the original FBX file unless you saved it inside of this folder, and I did not. So I have to go into my Blender projects. So this one is the original FBX. I want to open Show and Explorer. So now I've got the FBX here, and I've got my FBX on my other folder. From this one where I got my project tutorial, I'm going to copy it, paste. Oops. Needs to go inside the tutorial avatar area where the FBX file already exists. Copy, paste, and replace. Now this will not screw up everything. It'll just re-import the FBX, and it will keep all your settings, your humanoid, everything that we did, the materials, all of that will stay the same and unchanged. So this is perfectly okay to do. Now, if I was to hit play and go back into my scene, and then deactivate my bones here so I can rotate, you'll see that after I flipped the UVs on that eye, they're rotating in the proper direction. So this is how you would fix that if your eyeball was not rotating left and right appropriately based on how you had it. And once this is all done, you are all set. The next step is to open up your vrchat SDK, show the control panel. It usually pops up elsewhere. You just log in, go to Builder, auto fix everything. And then this is a warning, I don't need to worry about it. Build and test before you do anything else. Then you would load up vrchat. Back into vrchat, go into our avatars, come out of that one, go back in, refresh, and now I should see animations. It's a little quirky because of how things were set up, but yes, this is working. The eyes are animated. They are moving. They're just kind of up on the top of my skull right now, which is bizarre, but the animation is there. So with a little bit of tweaking, you can make the animations work as needed, and you can get your eyes to rotate, just like that, you saw on the bottom there, and have your eyes rotate so that you can have any shape mesh as your eyes and still be able to see the pupils move around. Case in point, I had a working version that you saw in my intro with the exact same setup with slightly better tweaked animations. Now, this exact setup may differ slightly per user based on your eye shapes, but this is ultimately how you would set this up, is to animate the decals so that when you have your eyeballs in any specific shape, the decals are doing all the heavy work for you. You have your receiver on each eye, or 4 receivers per eye, and 1 sender per eye. And that's all you really need to animate. And you get a result like this. So regardless of how awfully I tweaked my little test avatar, the effect is still there. It's just, I gotta tweak the animation settings a little bit more so that they actually point in the proper direction. And I think these are not properly UV unwrapped. So I just gotta fix that. And once that's fixed, then this one will work just fine. So as long as you follow the steps and you got your UVs unwrapped properly, you will be able to get the same result as what you had here on this avatar. So if most of your animations are screwing up, just make sure you try and redo and double check your UV unwraps for your eye islands that you see here. So make sure that these are properly adjusted so that when you move them, they go in the proper directions as you would expect them to. You can fiddle around with this as much as you like. Flip them around anytime, as many times as you like. Re-export, re-copy paste your FBX into there. It's not going to break everything. Your animations will still work. However, one major thing to take note of is when you are messing with the right and left animations of the pupils, when you flip your UV islands around, so when you look left, it is now actually looking right. You need to make sure you rename your animations from left to right and right to left, and make sure that inside your animator that your left and right animations are now pointing to the proper one, because they will have been flipped since you changed those UVs. So that is one thing to be very cautious of when you're modifying your UVs. I've done this multiple times. If you rename a left animation into a right animation and vice versa, these will change as well. So you have to make sure that these animations are pointing to the right ones, and that your blend tree on this menu, when you click on your blend tree, that your left animation is still pointing to your left parameter and your right animation is still pointing to your right parameter. Other than that, everything will work just fine.